So the part I'm going to talk about, the part that I oversee, is the penetration. So if I go back to Elliot's original assumptions, my job is to drive this 20% in 1 year and 50% in 5 years. And a lot of what I would tell you about has already been said. Elliot said that the incumbents that I'm stealing share from, nobody likes. Jason told you that we're building world-class networks. And so predictably, we're really marching very nicely along this curve. And I'm going to show that to you from a couple of different angles. This is sort of a top-line view of it. And it blends together all markets. So you've got markets here that are in their 5th year, or addresses that are in their 5th year, and at 50% share. You've got serviceable addresses that have gone live in the last couple of weeks. But what you find is the green, well, I'll say the blue first, is your serviceable addresses, and the green is your revenue. And it's been amazing how consistent the relationship has been between those two. Basically, every time a serviceable address goes live, well, it's not every time it goes live. What happens is addresses are going live, addresses are maturing, but we have stayed locked in pretty much at 30% share of our serviceable addresses, and then pretty much at $90 per customer a month. And so our revenue per serviceable address has been almost locked at that $27 every month for the last few years. So super, super reliable. When I think about what we do in these markets and how we're driving this penetration, there's really a couple of themes for me. One is top to bottom, building awareness, all the way down to driving the order. And these towns are a great size where we could go in and really surround the community. So we're getting naming rights on the largest music venues, and we're doing partnerships with nonprofits, and we're hosting classes, and so really in a lot of creative ways we're really infiltrating these communities and surrounding them, and then all the way down to driving that order. We've got a great door-to-door sales program. We've got promotions we're doing every quarter. I'm always looking for the upside, and for me, when I look at this funnel, there's real upside in the middle of the funnel in terms of consideration. And there was also mention of our new platform and how much more sophisticated we're going to be getting on the website. I'm really excited about more lead capture, more CRM, more opportunity to get those people who are stuck for one reason or another with their existing providers, figure out what hurdles we need to clear there and get them across the finish line. The other theme for me is balancing what we do centrally and what we do locally. If you do things too much centrally, as the large cable companies tend to do, then people feel like they're buying a national product, and it doesn't feel like what you're offering them is particular to their community and to their needs. If you do things too much locally, then you're operating inefficiently. And I think we've done a wonderful job of having a central group that is developing messaging, gathering insights, building promotions, but then taking it and localizing it in every single market. So if you look, and most of you can't see it, but the most recent creative we have in the yellow is really highlighting the people who live in your community and the people you might see around town. And it's a centrally developed campaign, and then it says, insert the people here. And by the time our local prospects see it, it feels very much like it was designed for them. So this is the view that I stare at pretty regularly. That gives me a sense of how we're doing on that path to 50% penetration. So what you see is on the y-axis on the left is the penetration, and then the x-axis is what we call average years serviceable. So again, in any given market, you can have an address that's been serviceable for 5 years, and you could have an address that went live yesterday, and so you're at an average of 2.5 years. And so what you see here are all our towns represented. What we've discovered now, having been in this business for a few years, is it really jumps up even faster than we might have expected in the first year. So we're really doing better than 20% in the first year. So it's very much, for any Crossing the Chasm fans, very much that early adopter sort of dynamic. And then we've got a more a consistent, slow climb from there. And I'll show you a different view later that gives me a lot of confidence that some of our mature markets are still climbing in a way that is more linear than it is plateauing. And by the way, just to give you the aggregate on all this, we are at about 2 to 2.5 years average serviceable across the entire footprint, and we're approaching 30% again in terms of our market share. And when I look at each of these towns, there's just a ton of stories, a ton of lessons in each of them. Situations that have propped some of these up and really driven them that we want to replicate. Some opportunities that are, or situations that are holding them back, where I think there's opportunities for us to get better. Certainly the selection of towns, there's so much there now where we could look at a town and say, yeah, this is the sort of town that's hungry for what we offer. We refer to fiber lust. We've done really well with towns who lost out on fiber. They lost out on AT&T. They lost out on Google, and they were just begging us to come. And those are places we know we're going to do well. We've had at least one town where we say, that was really just one ambitious council person, and the rest of the town maybe wasn't totally bought in, or they're still asking us about traditional cable packages, 5 years later. And so we recognize now where you have that sort of progressive, technical sort of culture that we'll do well in. One thing that I'm really excited about is what I call cluster buzz, where when we've got a couple of towns that we've done, and then some ones come in nearby, we jump right out because we're already benefiting from the awareness we've built there and some of the jealousy. A couple of other lessons is that the faster we build, the better we do. So if we build slowly for one reason or another, then there's people who were excited about it a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We're going to have trouble converting once those people are serviceable. So again, you've heard Jason, you've heard a little bit about microtrenching. I'm very excited about how that speed translates to conversion. And again, Elliot had shown this map. So much of what we're going to be doing leverages, what I've seen as best practices across the country with those clusters and with the right sort of psychographics that we're choosing. And then this is a different view. This, rather than show you a moment in time, this shows you each market and how it's grown over time. And in this case, you need to have a denominator. So I'm using what I consider to be the market at scale. So this will be lower than the share that each of these markets at of their current serviceable addresses. This is where they are relative to their future serviceable addresses. And what I look at when I see this is I see markets that are not growing to my satisfaction. So it's a great view for me to say, that one's plateaued a little bit. What can we do there? What's going on? What I get very encouraged by, and I mentioned this earlier, is if you look at some of the more mature markets, the ones that stretch out furthest to the right, you see that they really don't look like they're plateauing at all. So these are markets that are, among their serviceable addresses are over 40% and are really, really still growing in a pretty linear fashion. And finally, some upside. For me, we do a great job building awareness. We do a great job building consideration. I've got some very easy opportunities coming up to convert way better once people get down deeper into that funnel. One is simply the opportunity to optimize our purchase path. With our platform we've been on, we've really had very little flexibility to do a lot of A/B testing and a lot of iterating to the site. Say, what if we put this bit of copy here? What if we make this change to this button? What if we shorten the path in some way? And I think there'll be some easy wins with that. With the Affordable Connectivity Program, again, you've got awareness that goes out there. You've got people who come to check us out. Now we're going to be able to say to anywhere from 10 to 40% of the population in different towns, boy, if you qualify for ACP, if you're household is at 2 times the poverty level, you could be getting our best speed for free. So there should be some easy incremental acquisition for us. And finally, the major one is really mobile. I won't go too deep into how we got here, but many of you know we had an MVNO, a mobile business. We still have a deal with Verizon and a commitment to Verizon. And what we're doing there is we're just making it this amazing complement to our internet service. So people who have been wrestling with leaving their incumbent cable provider to come to us and get our fiber internet, now being told, by the way, if you're a Ting internet customer, you can get $10 unlimited service on Verizon every month. And so that suddenly changes the equation in a major way. And we've been watching Spectrum have a lot of success with this, and we offer a better experience, and we've got a better deal. So it should do a whole lot to help our conversion on internet.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Well, here's Ross. Ross was 2Cal's employee number 1. And he's been doing it for a long time. And I should note, this was Jason's first time doing anything like this. Michael has spoken with a bunch of you before, so I was really doing that, now that we've done it, we can clap for him. Oh, and you can figure there's not a clap just that comes to the mic too.
That was the best intro you've given me in 30 years, Elliot. That was great. Thank you. So you've heard a bit about how hard it is to build the network, great work Jason and his team are doing. Michael and his team are working really hard to make sure that he's selling into that network. I'm really going to talk to you about the work we're doing to hold on to those customers. And it's tough to talk about something that isn't really happening because the customers aren't leaving to an appreciable degree, but I'm going to talk about some of the dynamics there and why that is. You saw this in an earlier slide. I've highlighted here the key assumption around our churn. Do we want to stay in the range of 0.5 to 0.75? If we can get it to 0.4, 0.3, we're thrilled. But certainly, kind of keeping it within those bounds is job number 1 for me and my team. The work here is actually pretty easy because if you think of the modern telco market, it's a pretty hostile place, right? There's so many things that the incumbents are doing to antagonize their customers with contracts and gotchas in their pricing and install dates that may book out 4, 6, 8 weeks at a time and crappy CPE, as Ellie was talking about earlier. And within that market, Ting's a bit of an oasis, and we get to be an oasis because all we're doing is not doing the things that our competitors are doing to a large degree. And so I just want to talk about, I'm going to be quick because I know we're getting short on time, and it's tough to do a full 30 minutes on something that isn't happening, but I do want to talk about some of the things that are happening here. These are all the inputs as to how we get to that low churn. And I'll share some stats after this. Really all hinges around a great customer experience. A lot of that comes from the people that we have in the business and the operations. That falls in the label of great customer service. Jason's got his field team in-house. We've got our customer service team in-house. Today, that's about 120 or so people, all working throughout. We got a lot of people in our local markets, a lot of people here in Ontario just because of growing up here. And we find that finding good people is hard. So we have a really strong talent management strategy around the people that we're bringing in. We do a lot of work with our people practice to make sure that we're recruiting strongly. And we find what works best is that find curious people that like helping others, and we can train on all the ins and outs of being a fiber operator. So we put a ton of time and energy into supporting them, developing them, helping get them up to speed as quickly as possible. But all of that's done in-house. And what that means is that we're able to offer one and done service, no matter what customer segment we're talking about, whether it's a residential customer or a commercial customer. But by putting smart people in front of them. None of what we do is scripted, for example, because we've forearmed them with knowledge about how the CPE works and how the network works, and the difference of some of the the on the ground issues. Not every market is identical, so they got full visibility to that. They've got full visibility to the network telemetry, what's light levels coming off the wire, and we're always iterating that, creating more visibility to these people, and that just puts them in a position to be as helpful as they can be, and we trust them to be helpful. There's not a lot of what I would call gates around their decision making. For instance, each one of our people on the phones, frontline customer service advisors, been with us for 6 months. They're going to spend $200 to solve a problem for a customer. That's fully within their discretion. Above that, we kind of say, ask a friend. Don't go, out spending crazy money on solving individual problems. But all of that's monitored in arrears. There's no, they don't have to put somebody on hold for 20 minutes to get a supervisor to sign off on that, right? So that alone reduces our costs. And of course, we can monitor that on a weekly and monthly basis, make sure those costs are within, our expectations. But it's just one example of one small thing that we do there to, really keep those people solving problems as effectively as we can. Another big part of a success here linked to our low churn is just that community focus. A lot of our people live and work in these communities that we're serving. Super helpful when you're staffing a table at the farmers market and pushing the Ting brand with Michael's colleagues, to just have a known face there, right? So that extends into a lot of areas of the operations. And then of course, there's things like our approach to our contracts and our pricing. We've kind of got two SKUs, $89 for residential, $139 for SMB. Of course, you can buy more if you ask nicely, and we've got a way to deal with that. For by and large, we're not offering contracts to our customers. We have a terms of service, of course. If you really want a contract, we can give you one. We do have some commercial customers that like that. But that all adds up to some really, really good outcomes. So you can see here, the biggest measure that I keep an eye on day to day is our CSAT levels. Last year, we managed to finish off with an 88. The gold standard for telco is in the 30s. I've seen scores in the minus 40s. So there's your range. But then that all shows up in our churn numbers, right? So you can see here our average churn for our core markets was 0.77 last year. This year to date, we're at 0.57, right? So you can see we're well within our bounds there of taking care of these customers and making sure that Michael doesn't have to work over to find more customers than we're losing.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.